Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello friends, welcome back to this session of innovations in marketing and marketing of innovations. And we are going through our journey in terms of understanding changes in consumer behavior, but apart from the reasons which we have had recently and in distant past also in terms of changes in consumer behavior, which we can take as stimuli or influencers. I have been talking about this, and please try and look for the text associated with consumer behavior, general textbooks also, so that if you want to delve deeper into some models, those models are there. You may find some fundamental theories and reasons how these changes come in, but we are mentioning it here so as to highlight the perspective around how consumers have started behaving and what are the fundamental causes about as far as this behavioral change is, and we have been taking behavior as a response function. Last session we talked about few elements. I would be briefly reiterating those, and then I would be taking you towards the resultant around, because behavioral change is expressed in terms of resultant, or let us say purchase habit if we look at consumers, or how we have started looking for things, selecting goods, or in a broader sense our choices. Because here lies a key in terms of innovation in marketing, and I have been emphasizing upon this fact that incremental innovation for scaling up we have been doing continuously. So, here lies a key in terms of what else can be done in terms of innovation in marketing. I would be deliberating upon that in my next session and would be structuring the future discussions henceforth. So, let us go ahead with what we talked about as far as the situation goes in terms of our behavioral changes. For example, last time I mentioned this, that this paper I specifically referred to, wherein internet driven changes in consumer behavior were briefly discussed. So, one is co-creation, that consumers are now being deeply involved in as far as the process goes, geographic versus universal availability, and I am not going to reiterate these points, these were mentioned in the last video. So, this was this is how we somehow look at things now, and this paper is important in terms of developing that understanding. For example, fixed versus flexible timing, and that definitely in terms of work, in terms of entertainment, in terms of, for example, today OTT, you can stop the movie anytime and then you can carry it forward. These are just brief examples. Technology has enabled that, but that has given us a behavioral change in terms of interacting with our entertainment devices as well as looking at the entertainment as such. So, it is at our disposal, which is quite convenient to us, but then have we lost a fabric around enjoying entertainment together? That is a major question. And sometimes there are social aspects which evolve around as an impact, but then there are consumer or marketing aspects which evolve around in due course of time. Although in terms of marketing everything goes towards developing the market for that product particularly at the end of the day, but I have been reiterating again this point that marketers have to develop the market as a whole and market opportunity. When we are referring to these two aspects, then I am referring to value chain and reiterating the definition also that marketing must serve society at large at the end of the day. So, if we are losing the perspective around entertaining ourselves together somehow. If it is going unidirectional, then we have to look at the perspective around entertainment as well. Bricks versus clicks and so on, we have talked about this. So, now let us go for internet driven change in consumer behavior with another aspect, and this also I mentioned last time, but slight connectivity had to be developed with today's discussion. So, briefly I would be reiterating on these points as far as the whole scenario goes, and I would be emphasizing on one or two to just make a point, and last time also I remember I emphasized on some elements. For example, consumer is more in control. Well, that is fine, but then that is an exercise for marketer, and how to specifically look for individual customer satisfaction at the end of the day, that we have been doing through lots of CRM, and organizations, they have developed call centers around. Today, after every transaction, every banking organization asks for your feedback. How was it? Because that is how they focus upon the necessity or redundancy of a particular kind of a service, and that is not all. They want you to be retained with that service somehow, because they know that customer would fluctuate immediately as soon as the satisfaction level comes little down, and that little down is on a shorter scale. So, I will come back to measurement criteria and those kind of things. So, and consumers research more in terms of products and service differently, and then there are recommendations which are key drivers for consumer selection. Recommendations are a two-way sword. Customer is neutral, so what the other customer would take about that, and customer is very delighted, but the delight of the customer has a perspective around his or her own criteria. Is there any scale for that recommendation, or this recommendation is taken verbatim as it is, as of now it is being done? How is it helping us? It is a matter of research papers only as of now. Many online portals, for example, if you go to hotel bookings and those kind of things, they refer to that these many customers suggested this about this kind of a hotel and so on. If a customer says that stay was very good, service was optimal and staff was warm, but not served in time, what do you think about this? Would you choose this hotel or no? Probably you are stuck up with that place, but then a dilemma in terms of what kind of a services would you would be given. So, you see, that is what refers to, and this I am talking of, that you have a stimuli in terms of a comment and your behavior is evolving in terms of what choices you would make. So, that is precisely what is happening around as far as the whole scenario goes. Consumers are evaluating across unrelated products and services categories. Substitution and alternative is coming up. Should I be going to cinema, or just visiting a shopping mall, or spending my time somewhere else, or just on OTT, or sitting in shopping mall, I should be looking at my mobile. This can be there. So, the point is that are we actually understanding our own behavioral perspective first of all, how we are responding to all the stimuli, and on the other side, are we as marketers, what kind of a response do we have in terms of these kind of behavioral changes? Remember, response can only be in terms of innovation in marketing, and I would be coming to you in terms of the same. Before I go ahead and take up few examples and larger stimuli which affected us recently in terms of as far as behavioral change go, and last time I mentioned about COVID-19, which definitely has brought in so many changes in our behavioral perspective, and people are still analyzing that, and marketers are trying to wonder on what kind of adjustments they can do first of all, and radical and fundamental innovations they can bring in terms of as far as COVID-19 goes. So, but before that, let me reiterate few of the stimuli I mentioned last time in terms of the impact. For example, I talked about measurement criteria we have in terms of how do we look at life. For example, I talked about success, growth and so on. Now, where is it taking to us? It is taking to us in terms of comparison. For example, yes, we used to compare ourselves earlier as well, but we were not so exposed so much in terms of inputs from all the sides. I knew that how my neighbor is doing long back, but today I know that how whole of this strata of income group which I belong to is doing in terms of whatever tourism choices they have, whatever vehicle choices they have and so on. It is good in one sense, but again the point is that my behavior is being shaped up according to the measurement criteria of the success I am looking at in terms of how should I go demographically and so on. And then when we compare, it definitely can be looked up in terms of as far as automotive sales goes, SUVs, larger vehicles, are those a matter of choice in terms of the actual utility these vehicles bear? Sometimes you doubt that. Sports utility vehicle, as the name says, is related to sports and utility. Multi-utility vehicle, as the name says, is related to multi and utility. That was the marketer's perspective, that has always been, but are consumers purchasing it for that purpose? There are several kinds of shoes, walking shoes, running shoes, but are consumers purchasing it for that kind of a purpose, or the names are not resonating with the usage because somehow usage is driven by comparison in terms of measurement criteria or social class or social perspective around the measurement criteria. I should not be using word class specifically, but I intend to say income or let us say income categorization in terms of class. So, that is where things are. Then when automotive apparels, what kind of clothes you are looking from where? Again, and I mentioned that briefly last time as well, how you are expressing yourself. Earlier also people used to purchase a lot of gold. Today gold is an expression and it is a universal phenomena. Okay, it is an investment proposition. You have that kind of a disposable income, you want to possess gold, and then you have a logic that this kind of return can be achieved on gold. There are many organizations which go for gold deposits as well as loans against gold, but you know what I am talking about. Ornaments business is a resultant of the expression criteria or expression measurement in terms of as far as our association with gold goes. How much gold do I possess in comparison to whom? That kind of a thing. It traditionally has been like that, but today it is rampant. Good or bad, I am not talking about that right away. It is marketers' delight for that matter as of now, but again the point is this is a behavioral response. That is how diamonds, that is how an overall expression in terms of how I want to be looked upon in terms of comparison alongside all in the society. Many a times this expression limits itself to mobile phones and automotives and so on. It has redirected our social thought process as well. It then redirects us towards professions which yield larger money. It redirects ourselves towards methods of gaining larger income as such. You see, marketing has an objective of serving society. If society would change its own fabric, marketing either has to readjust, but to me marketing should readjust the social criteria. That is what the actual purpose of marketing is. If marketing adjusts itself according to the social measurement criteria, then to me it is not a successful thing basically, or somehow we have not defined it right. So, then comes in speed and time. Convenience is one thing, but extra convenience, to how far marketer would satisfy that convenience perspective. I am not saying that consumers should think in those terms, but I am saying that how marketers should innovate to redefine convenience, if at all marketer cannot go incrementally anymore. So, that is what we are looking at. You see, there was a time when you waited for almost 2-3 hours for domestic flights. Today, there is a gestation period of 1 hour, 1.5 hour, if not in the case of extra security or some COVID like situations, but they have accommodated that time well. That actually created an operational efficiency for them as well. What would they do now? And why should they do that in an incremental format? Many airlines in Europe, low cost airlines, they have reduced it to half an hour as well. But again, what next? And that is where the need of innovation comes in. I would be emphasizing upon that. Then comes in, for example, convenience is related to several industries which are facing this apart from travel and tourism, as I just mentioned, airlines, banking for example. Today we want immediate response in terms of as far as banking situation goes. That is good, that is fine, but what next? So, this is a behavioral response in terms of convenience which has evolved in due course of time. Even courses, I want short term courses. I want one composite course which can solve all my problems and I can achieve a very good life while studying for 1.5 years. Management program, we have been doing this. We have actually we have been restructuring management program in 18 months, 20 months and a course credit structure of 70 credits, which if you can decipher is 17, 18, 19 subjects. And then we have broken those subjects into lectures and interactions and case studies. What about books? We have left them behind. It is a module based kind of a thing. It is good, customer wanted that, and I never take students as customers, but then the customer in terms of the industry wanted that the student should be ready with this kind of a module. They would come, they would perform. What would they do next? We will retrain them. People are doing that, but in the process, if somehow someone is not being trained rightly at the right moment, how incrementally that person is changing his or her life and growing in their life comparatively, that has become a major question. Are we having redundant workforce which gets and this question gets emerged and prominent when somehow recessionary phases come in, retrenchments come in, because you see at the time of growth in terms of market you hired so many people on the basis of their immediate skills, and at the time when you have to drive that market you go for retrenchment. Organizations are hiring executives by their own choice, having a plan in mind and finally responding in terms of retrenchment if somehow things are not conducive. Is slightly paradoxical, acceptable to all, but paradoxical. Origin starts from courses which we have defined in due course of time now. It is good and not so good as well. So, that is what we have to carefully look at in terms of as far as the situation goes. Vehicles, faster vehicles are there. Technology in terms of I mentioned about technology, technology itself is an enabler and it has redirected our behavior in terms of communication and connectivity. Connectivity has both the ends, it enables and it perplexes as well. We have a strong analysis on in terms of connectivity enablement or communication enablement in our society, but we do not have any large public based opinion perspective or opinion based study in terms of which is acceptable or which is discussed amongst larger population, wherein larger people get involved in terms of what kind of questions this large connectivity and communication has generated. I mentioned right to be forgotten last time. So, those are the repercussions, that is again a behavioral response. What would marketers do? Have they started thinking about this? Has any mobile communication service provider or internet service provider started thinking in terms of talking to people? How are you feeling today? What can be done in terms of leaving you aside except for throwing larger number of messages at you? Is this are they looking for this kind of a criteria in terms of serving customers for longer time? Is your mail looking for not throwing so many mails at you many times? Are they tracking that what kind of mails customers are just deleting and that is all? Or are they charging on the basis of delete or no delete, that means a click. So, that is how, if you are deleting, then also it is a click. So, are they charging their customers on that basis? If they are, then they also have to revisit the measurement criteria, and that is how whole situation in terms of value chain gets evolved. Climate has affected construction, which is evident in terms of lots of air conditioning. Do we require that kind of an air conditioning today? Don't you feel sleeping in open air sometimes? Do you? And if you, then somehow climate has overwhelmingly redirected, reshaped our behavior, and we responded with a need or want in terms of air conditioning. Marketers provided that. Now today we are perplexed what marketers should do. It's a two-way situation, but has to be faced by marketers in terms of innovation. Then urbanization, it has lots of social aspects associated with in terms of as far as behavioral response goes, and the list is unlimited. I would be talking about these kind of things in terms of when I would be deciphering what marketers should do in terms of innovation in marketing. And then whole of all these things, if we try to summarize in one go, then there are few keywords which marketers have to rethink now. Marketing books have been talking about customer lifetime value. That can be understood with a longer association of a customer with a kind of a product or product category, and that may be associated with satisfaction and loyalty, that has an association with trust, and somehow that again is a perspective in terms of as far as how well you feel served, because trust enables you to look at the service or product with more delight, with lesser complaints, and that avoids short term gains from both the sides. So, if we do not have that large kind of a behavioral change perspective associated with everything, then longer association, time bound or periodical innovation for enhancing the satisfaction of the customers, for gaining customer delight could have been well achieved, which happened for many years till rapid behavioral change was evident because of prominence of several kinds of stimuli in past 3-4 decades, which evolved and emerged from all the sides. I am not saying that that world was good or this world is not so good or this world is better and that was not so good. My focus is only on looking at stimuli and behavioral change and understanding this consumer behavior perspective with reference to the need of innovation in marketing, which we are going to emphasize upon all through in coming sessions, through understanding what marketers are trying to do and should be doing for gaining that position of loyalty and trust back, if not for very long term, but then for at least some middle term or long term. Because the fundamental aspect which is associated with losing on that duration of trust and loyalty and mutual gain and value chain based benefit are two majorly. One, we would not be able to claim that marketing is actually developing the market with the perspective of serving the society at large. So, we would never be able to claim that. And on the other side, it is a costly affair. So, it would always be like, someone's gain, someone's loss, someone's gain, someone's loss, and zero sum game kind of a situation. And in the process, many would lose. So, gain can be counted in terms of many, but what we would be doing in terms of those who would lose, customers or marketers. When we say marketers would lose or may lose, then what happens to their organizations, their marketing efforts, their supply chains, their value value chain partners, their employees, and so on. And in due course of time, say customers lose, then customer got associated with a perspective, with a positioning you have done in terms of your product for a reason, for being benefited. If customers lose, then somehow a part of life of that customer gets affected. It is not just the disposability of the product. I am talking of, let us say, banking customers. If we have credit system in place to enable the customers, have we been teaching the customers or educating the customers to responsibly experience that credit, get benefited out of that, and then repay that in due course of time? Are we trying to enable them for that? Are we giving them a piece of thought in association with that? Because that is how we would be able to associate them for a longer term. Grameen Bank Bangladesh created a whole innovation in marketing system for a complete value chain and created history of that sorts. Have we been able to generate similar kind of a system elsewhere, and why these specific examples remain as examples? Why these do not become models for everyone to be adopted? What are those specific reasons? I would be talking about these things in innovator's dilemma or marketer's dilemma as such, if we look at an innovator as a marketer. But then keep thinking in terms of that there are specific examples which could have become models. So, where have we lost that thought of converting these examples into models? What was the point which we could not get out of those? What was it? Was it just adaptation, or somehow it was complacency on our part, or somehow we have not been visiting the definition time and again and not looking at this perspective of society at large? What has gone wrong? What is going wrong, and how we can move towards a productive trajectory of larger benefit and mutual gain? I would be coming back to you and would be emphasizing upon so many important points in terms of innovation in marketing, while delineating the elements of innovation in marketing mix, and would be putting up scenarios in front of you how we should look at this situation before I take you towards a methodical discussion on different P's and innovation and the marketing process itself. I will keep on interacting with you. I assume that this course is taking its right course and you have started enjoying that. Keep pouring in your questions in due course of time. We will be answering those, and try and remain with the soul and the context of this course. That is, we have to look for a large mutually benefited value chain based benefit, mutually benefited proposition in terms of innovation in whole of the marketing process for creating, communicating, delivering offerings to clients, customers, partners, and society at large. I will be seeing you once again in my next session. Till then, goodbye.